Welcome to today's topic. We are going to talk about 3 silly myths about intuitive eating that you may think, and I'm going to debunk these myths for you today. Before we start, I just realized I have a mint in my mouth and this is not going to work out well. So I'm going to take the mint out. Okay, this is real life, people. For those of you who are new here or who don't know me, I'm Heather McConaughey, and I am a registered nurse turned nutritionist and intuitive eating counselor. And I work with women to help them heal their relationship to body and food, who are sick of yo-yo dieting, who are sick of chronic dieting, who've lost and regained the same amount of weight 3, 5, 6, 9 times, and I'm here to show you a better way. I teach women how to do this by helping them master the 10 principles of intuitive eating. Yes, there are actually 10 principles to intuitive eating. It's not just eating whatever you want, whenever you want, with no thought or attunement to your body. That is actually one of the myths. Okay, so let's dive into the first of the 3 myths, which is that intuitive eating is just eating. So to a degree, it is. What do I mean by this? Well, when you were a toddler, you were a natural intuitive eater. When you were 2 years old, you felt hungry, you wanted to eat. When you were done, when you were full, you stopped eating. And as you grew older, you became more aware of external messages about your body, about food, about how we should be in the world. And you started to listen to those messages and they started to disconnect you from your natural intuitive eater, okay? So in a sense, intuitive eating is about eating what you want, when you want it, and what sounds good. But a lot of people mistakenly think they actually are following the method of intuitive eating as a philosophy when they're not actually following the 10 principles. And if you have a history of dieting or chronic dieting, then you are disconnected from your body's signals to a degree. And intuitive eating is really about helping you reconnect via those 10 principles to being fully attuned to your body. Does that make sense? Okay. A lot of people think that they're doing intuitive eating, but then I'll see them make a post about their intuitive eating, but then they're talking about still counting macros or bouncing back from the weekend or, trying to lose 5 to 10 pounds. And that is the antithesis of intuitive eating and what it teaches. Okay. It's really easy to think that you are intuitive eating already without realizing that you're actually not. If you haven't done this healing work, if you have been steeped in diet culture, which if you live in the modern world, you've been exposed to diet culture messages all of your life, unless you've been living under a rock and you don't have access to the internet or other humans, you have been exposed to diet mindset. Okay, so intuitive eating is really knowing, practicing, integrating, and mastering all 10 tools of intuitive eating ongoingly. It's a practice that you wake up and do every day. So just like you might wake up and do a meditation practice or a prayer practice, or you might practice a skill, an artistic skill, or a skill in your work, this is also that same type of thing where you wake up daily to practice something. Okay, so the second myth that I want to dive into debunking is I won't learn any nutrition knowledge while intuitive eating. Have you ever had this thought or this fear? I know when I was new to intuitive eating, I almost kind of just poo-pooed it because I was like, oh, this is just not going to teach anybody about nutrition. You're just telling people to eat whatever they want, when they want. Okay. But that's not going to teach them about how to build muscle. That's not going to teach them about how to power their workouts or recover. And here's what I learned. I was wrong. Okay. When we're wrong, we need to know that we are and then admit it. Actually, the 10th principle of intuitive eating is gentle nutrition. So what does that mean? It means that to be an intuitive eater means that you actually are thinking about nutrition It's just not in a rigid way that controls you or is about you shrinking or making your body smaller. Does that make sense? It's about fueling your body with the nutrients to do the things you want to do, to thrive, to feel good in your skin. But it's not about applying rigid nutritional rules like keto. We're going to eliminate all carbs. Paleo. We're going to eliminate anything that didn't come from the ground and has a ton of nutrients, okay? You're not eliminating foods or controlling the amount. You're using your body to tune in to your food, to make your food choices. Plus, you're being aware of nutrition knowledge as you make those. So, for example, with my clients, like 100% we'll talk about how to optimize muscle growth and how much protein that might take. But what we're not going to be doing is counting our protein. I used to teach that. We're not going to do that anymore. But we are going to talk about learning how to discover what is the amount of protein where I feel good. How can I visualize and actually tell this is the amount of protein I need to trigger muscle protein synthesis without obsessively weighing things or counting them? So I'm still going to be teaching you all about nutrition. It's just not going to be rigid rules. It's going to be principles and frameworks and guidelines that you can use to make choices for your body that fit for you. It's so important if we want to have a healthy relationship with body and food, we have to make sure that we are satisfied in our eating. If we are not satisfied in our eating, it will drive us to overeat or binge eat, which will then trigger more body dissatisfaction, disgust, self-hatred, disappointment, right? Can you relate to any of these emotions? And then that will trigger a desire to be smaller, which will trigger a diet. It will trigger then restriction of types of foods, and then you will not feel satisfied in your eating, and the cycle repeats itself. This is called the dieter's dilemma, okay? So it's very important that as you heal your relationship to body and food, as you're recovering from a lifetime of dieting, that you actually focus first on satisfaction, taste preferences, hunger, fullness, and you don't focus as much on nutrition at first. That's why it's the 10th principle. That's why it's last, okay? Because we're not going to start with that principle. But you are going to learn nutrition knowledge. You are going to learn about the benefits of fiber. You are going to learn, what does the research say about collagen? We are going to focus on how can you feel good in your gut day to day, not by following rigid external guidelines, but looking at scientific data and how does that food make you feel in your body? Okay? We need to get back to being in tune with our body and understanding how foods make us feel. Okay? So the third and final myth I want to discuss today, which is a very common thing to believe about intuitive eating, is I'll just eat junk all the time. If I have no rules and no guidelines, it's going to be mayhem. I'm just going to be naked with a bowl of cookie dough, drowning my sorrows, just like dumping chips all over my face. Have you had this thought? Okay, I had this thought. So this is a very common fear. Here's what you need to understand. 1, let's first eliminate the word junk from that limiting belief that we have. If you think I'll just eat junk all the time, the first thing we need to do is just intersect into your limiting belief and remove the word junk. Stop labeling foods as junk, y'all. Food either has energy and nutrients or it just has energy. What do I mean by that? Okay, if you eat an apple, it's got carbohydrates. It's also got water, fiber, pectin. It's got polyphenols, and it's also got different like micronutrients, like some vitamin C and stuff, okay? If we eat Skittles, Skittles are also just carbs, but they don't have fiber. They don't have water. They don't have vitamins and minerals, okay? So we have energy-only foods, and we have energy and nutrient-dense foods. A healthy diet has a variety of foods in balance with moderation, okay? Variety, balance, moderation. Those are the 3 keys to healthy eating long-term over time. Healthy for your body and your mind. Too many people online these days are just focused on physical health, and they neglect to understand the implications of exclusively focusing on nutrition for health and what that does to mental health, which actually impacts your physical health, okay? So that's the first thing. Let's just change the words that we're using because language is powerful. So we could also call this food play food, all right? I like energy versus energy and nutrients because I find that takes all morality out of it, where play food even sounds a little bit like, oh, some foods are fun and some foods aren't. Whereas like I get joy from eating egg whites and I also get joy from eating M&Ms, okay? I get joy from Caesar salad and I get joy from a cupcake. I get joy from chicken, rice, and broccoli, and I also get joy from a croissant, okay? So if you're actually attuned to your body and you've healed from diet culture, you will naturally eat a variety of foods. Imagine eating Skittles for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and both snacks every day for the rest of your life. How quickly do you think you would get sick of the Skittles? I honestly think I would be sick of Skittles by meal 3, okay? Like maybe meal 2. Now, pick a food you really love. So I'm going to imagine the food that I feel like I want the most. Maybe a food I feel like I have the least self-control around right now. I'm going to pick cupcakes, which is a food I'm actually habituating right now. Okay, cupcakes. Okay, can I imagine eating a cupcake right now? Yes. Can I imagine eating a cupcake maybe for dinner tonight too? Yes. Maybe dessert? Okay, maybe, yeah. Breakfast tomorrow with some coffee? Decaf? Yes. Okay, will I want a cupcake then for lunch too? Maybe for dessert. Will I want one for an afternoon snack? I don't think so. Wow. In less than 48 hours, if I actually run through that food in my head, I will not crave that food. In less than 48 hours. Now, I might want a cupcake the next day, but this is called habituation. And what happens is when you actually methodically, systematically, and intentionally expose yourself to foods that you have made off limits, that you've restricted, that you villainize, demonize, that you feel out of control around, that you binge on, that you don't trust yourself around, etc. What happens is slowly and surely you become exposed to the food and eventually it becomes neutral to you. I will still always love cupcakes, but as I habituate cupcakes, I will want them less and less. I will not feel compulsive around them. The reason that you lose control around foods and you feel compulsive around certain foods is because you have not exposed yourself to the food. It remains very novel, and foods with low habituation, low exposure, will trigger overeating and binges and feelings of being out of control, okay? Now, if you are coming to me from a history of dieting and maybe a long history of dieting, chronic dieting, 20, 30 years, depending on how restrictive you've been, depending on if you're currently in a restrictive season or coming out of a restrictive season when you work with me, you may eat a lot more play foods or foods that you've previously felt out of control around. You may eat more of those at first. And this is part of the healing journey. And you have to trust that you're healing in body and mind. You're healing from the effects of dieting, and it's not going to happen overnight. For me, I had eliminated sugar so much out of my diet that I felt out of control around sugar. I would feel disgusting. I would eat too much of it. I would feel sick because I ate so much. And then that would reinforce a belief I had that I was a sugar addict, when actually I just had restricted sugar so much that I wasn't habituated to it. Okay, so for me, the first year that I was an intuitive eater, this past year, I ate more sugar than normal, quote unquote, that I probably will end up eating. Why? Well, because I hadn't really allowed myself freedom around sugar for 7+ years. So of course I'm going to want sugar more. Imagine that you are madly in love with somebody and they go off to war or to a foreign country for 5 years, and you don't get to see them for 5 years in person. When they first come back, don't you think you're going to want to spend every waking moment with them? Yes. Okay. Now, after maybe 3 weeks straight with them, do you think maybe you'd want to break for an afternoon? Probably. Maybe after you've spent 3 months straight, maybe you want a day off? Sure. Maybe after you've spent 6 months straight together with no other human contact, do you think you'd want a weekend away? Yeah. It's the same with food, y'all. Some of y'all think that you're just going to eat Twix and French fries forever, when actually what's going to happen is you are going to intentionally, methodically, and systematically habituate foods one by one. You do not have to dive into the deep end and try to habituate all foods at once. You can. I call that going all in. It's allowed, totally acceptable. But if you have anxiety around the process, fear, it makes sense to go slowly, to wade in to the deep end. You can jump in or wade in. Both approaches will get you into the deep water, y'all, okay? But it's important that you understand that this is an essential part of the healing process, is exposing yourself to the foods that you consider junk food that you do not have control around, okay? Another really interesting thing that happens when you're intuitive eating, and this happened for me, I would give myself permission to eat foods that I had forbidden. Like, for example, wheat thins, a cracker. Why had I forbidden wheat thins? Because they had processed white flour and because they had some sugar in them. So I considered them an off-limits food for me, okay? And so I bought wheat thins, started eating wheat thins, and guess what happened? Like, I was really into wheat thins for a couple months. I even felt a little like compulsive around them. Like, oh my God, I want more wheat thins. And then I just like bought wheat thins and like forgot about them. Like, I still have wheat thins in my pantry and I have not eaten them for months. Like, I don't even crave them. They just like don't appeal to me. Okay? You guys, this was a food that I felt out of control around. This is the power of habituation. So it's important to understand that when you do not expose yourself to a food over time, you will develop cravings and the experience that you're addicted to the food when that's actually not the case. When you are actually attuned to your body, you will eat a variety of foods. You will eat apples, you will eat salads, you will eat meat, protein, you'll eat dessert, you'll have a soda, then you'll want water, you'll have some tea, then you'll want a coffee, okay? You will actually discover your natural taste preferences, okay? And when you work with me, you will actually learn, practice, and become masterful at the 10 principles of intuitive eating. You will learn how to have freedom around all foods. You will learn how to have peace around foods. You will learn how to accept your body and have an experience of body neutrality, neither overly worshiping your body nor critiquing and hating your body. You'll learn to be just more neutral about this shell that you're in, this little meat suit that you're inhabiting while you're on earth, okay? You'll learn how to stop overeating. You'll learn how to tune in to your hunger and fullness signals and really develop attunement with your body. And you'll learn a deep knowledge of nutrition. You'll learn about how to fuel yourself to feel good, how to optimize muscle growth, how to recover from workouts, and more, but by doing it in a very attuned way. With flexible frameworks, okay? If this sounds like something that you want, then go ahead and book a call with me to chat more with me about my body attunement program. This is your opportunity to share with me about what you're struggling with, for me to learn more about you, and for us to decide together if working together is the next best step for you in your healing journey. So click the link in my Instagram bio to book a call, and we will chat more. Thanks so much for tuning in today. I can't wait to hear what was most helpful for you from this chat, and I will talk to you again soon. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the podcast. If you found it helpful, would you please rate and review the podcast on iTunes? I would so appreciate it. It means so much to me, and I'd love to hear what has been most helpful to you from this episode. As always, you can send me a message on Instagram with your takeaways, and I look forward to chatting with you again soon.